The dehumanization of widowhood rights is gradually changing for the better in the Upper East region. According to the Widows and Orphans movement, many of the rights seen to be demeaning to widows are now being modernized to avoid human rights abuses. The movement, however, notes a complete abolishment of the practices cannot happen anytime soon because outmoded traditional beliefs are still very inherent in many communities, and widows continue to face serious challenges. As the world marks International Widows Day today, JoyNews' Upper East correspondent Albert Sorry revisits the subject of dehumanizing widowhood rights and now reports.
Where do you go when you by yourself?
Cynthia Ayora here lost her husband over 10 years ago. She is now 50 years old and lives with her 3 children in this small home at Nyariga under the Bolgatanga municipality. She is a farmer and a straw baskets weaver. Cynthia recounts her ordeal while performing the traditional widowhood rites after her husband died.
When my husband died, I was made to strip and wear some leaves in place of a skirt. After about 3 days, they removed the leaves, burnt them, and used the ashes to prepare a black concoction. This concoction was then put into a calabash in which my food was often served, and I had to eat the food. They said if I ate the food, the spirit of my late husband would not harm me. But if I refused to eat, then I would be haunted by his spirit.
Cynthia says she was not comfortable with the things she was asked to do as part of the widowhood rites, but to refuse was out of the question because the traditional leaders had stamped their authority on the matter from the very beginning, and she dared not disobey them. The situation was, however, a little different in the case of Antoinette Alika, a 26-year-old woman from Tongobion who lost her husband only in February this year. In her case, though the rituals were performed, some well-meaning members of her family directed that some aspects of the rites be performed in such a way that it would not cause her any harm.
According to the tradition, on the day my late husband's funeral began, I was supposed to take my bath outside on a refuse dump at about 4 p.m. But some of the ritualists said I was not in the right frame of mind and that I could even collapse in the process. They also said the practice was outmoded and not suitable for young widows like myself. So they agreed that I should perform the rites, but with a pair of shorts on to cover my nakedness. So that is what I did.
It would appear then that the dehumanizing nature of widowhood rights, as it were over a decade ago, is changing for the better. According to the Executive Director for the Widows and Orphans Movement, Fatih Abigail Abdullahi, though the outmoded traditional beliefs concerning widowhood still exist in many communities, advocacy work has contributed to a change in the manner in which the rites are performed.
The Widows and Orphans Movement, with support from Action Aid as well as other well-wishers, have been doing a lot of work in terms of ending or modifying dehumanizing widowhood rights. And those include sensitizing the widows themselves to know their rights, knowing what the law says about women and their human rights, educating our chiefs, our ritualists, that's the traditional council. Over the past 20 years, there have been great successes. For instance, formerly widows were made to strip completely naked during the performance of the widowhood rites. But now, due to the work we've done, they are made to put a cloth around themselves.
Away from the issue of dehumanizing widowhood rights is the fact that many widows who are not gainfully employed continue to go through financial difficulties and emotional trauma, mainly due to lack of support from their husbands' family members.
My late husband was able to help me learn a trade. I am a seamstress now, but I don't have a shop, so I work from home. I have to cater for 3 children, so it is very difficult, but I do my best.
Without my husband, it has been really tough. When the rainy season begins, I'm left behind in the farming activities and I have to struggle through it all by myself. The Widows and Orphans Office helps out most of the time, but you know, the fact that you live as a widow in a house or a community with people and no one seems to care about you is enough to get you depressed.
Fati Abigail Abdullahi says, this year's observation of the International Widows' Day is dedicated to raising awareness of the problems widows are facing in silence.
Our theme for the year is inclusion of the invisible women and invisible problems to national agenda through community youth journalism, because the youth are getting married. They need to know what their traditional beliefs have in place for them and join in the fight against dehumanizing widowhood rights, because you never know when one can become a widow.
Today, many traditional rulers in the Upper East region have joined the crusade for the elimination of all forms of dehumanizing widowhood rights. However, they all say that it will take a long time for such practices to be completely erased, because many elders in the traditional settings are still holding on to their outmoded beliefs. The question is, how much is a traditional belief worth compared to the confidence of a woman who is grieving the loss of her husband, but who has to stay strong for her children? Albert Sorry, Joy News, Bolgatanga.
I'm proud of